Today we're going to start with the parts of speech, and that is a very elemental place to start in the discussion of writing. There's nothing new here really. You guys already know the parts of speech. You probably know them in a very intuitive way. But sometimes an intuitive way isn't enough. Sometimes it behooves us to go backwards a little bit and look at the things we think we already know. There's always more to be learned when you look really, really closely at something. And that's what we're going to do in this class. We're going to take things that we've already taken for granted in our writing education and look at them in hopefully a new way. And maybe that'll change the way you think about how you write and how you create ideas and put them into writing. And that's what today is really about, all right? So bear with me, stick through this, because maybe there's something new you can hear here. Maybe maybe I can point out a few things with the parts of speech that you hadn't been told before. Who knows? So here they are. The easiest and most basic part of speech is the noun. And there's not a whole lot you can say about nouns, or is there? A noun is a person, place, or thing. You've all heard that definition before. A thing is a noun. This thing is a noun. It's a pen. It's a thing. It's a noun. However, I want to add one little piece to that definition. I want to tweak the end a little bit. A person, place, or thing, or idea. And the reason I'm adding that is because ideas are nouns, and that's where sometimes people get tripped up on identifying the nouns in a sentence, because an idea is not necessarily a concrete thing. It's the representation of a concrete thing, sort of. Here's what I mean by that. Democracy is a noun. Grammatically speaking, it's a noun. But it might be hard for you to wrap your brain around how a democracy can be a thing. Well, it is, because it's an idea, and an idea is still a thing, okay? It's a representation of something. Love is a noun, but you can't go up to love and poke it. You can't hold love in your hand and see how much it weighs, but it still counts as a noun, okay? Grammatically, it's a noun, and grammatically, it is a thing. In the simplest sense, a verb is an action, all right? Every sentence has to have an action of some sort. Doing something is doing an action. If I have a thing and the thing is doing something, that's the verb. What's it doing? Well, it's falling. It's flying through the air, right? Those are actions that are happening to this thing, to this noun. That's a verb. Those are the easy verbs to pick out. However, a verb, in addition to being an action, can also be a state. Now, what do I mean by a state? Like the state of California? No, that's a noun. The state or quality of a thing can be an action. For example, if I give you the following sentence, my dog is really happy today. What's the verb in that sentence? I love doing this in class because I get so many different answers, because so many people have forgotten this rule. Something as simple as a verb, it's really easy to forget. My dog is really happy today. What's the verb? And I'll get answers like, well, it's happy, or it's really. No. Is. My dog is really happy today. Is the verb, and it's the only verb in that sentence. Nothing else is a verb. Is a state, okay? It's a state of being. In other words, something is, it is existing, it is being, and therefore is counts as the verb. So my dog is really happy today. Is the only verb in that sentence, and that's how a verb can be a state of being, a state, all right? Those are the verbs. Adjectives are pretty simple and pretty basic as well. They describe, that's what they do. But specifically, they describe things. So again, if I'm working with a thing, a noun, and I want to describe the noun, I use adjectives to do that. How would I describe this pen? Any description I have for it is an adjective. It's red, it's plastic, it's smooth, it's long, it's slender. All of those things are describing the physical state of this pen, right? I'm describing this thing. That's what adjectives do. Adverbs, however, although they're very similar, are also very different. And this is where I find people get tripped up very often when they start getting into adverbs. An adverb is, for the most part, describing an action. Okay, I said for the most part because adverbs are versatile and they have other uses in a sentence. An adverb can modify a verb, but it can also modify an adjective, and it can also modify another adverb. But as far as we're concerned for our writing right now, I want you to think of how they work with verbs, okay? Adverbs modify verbs. Now, why are they tricky? Well, because people get them confused with adjectives. Remember the adjective I said is describing a thing? An adverb is describing an action. It's describing a verb. In fact, look at the word, adverb. It's literally adding to a verb is what it's doing. Nice way to remember the definition for an adverb. It's adding to a verb. So it's not the thing, it's how it's doing something, okay? If this thing is doing something, if I have a verb here, okay, it's falling. Falling is a verb, right? How is it falling? It's falling quickly. It's falling silently. It's falling smoothly through the air. Those are all adverbs because they're not describing the thing, they're describing how the thing is doing something. Red is an adjective because it's talking about the thing. Silently is an adverb because it's talking about how it's doing a thing, okay? That's the difference, the key difference between adjectives and adverbs. Now, first of all, a couple of things about adverbs. Did you notice the examples I gave all ended the same way? They all ended in ly. That's a good clue that you've got an adverb. A lot of adverbs end in ly. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I'm probably going to say most of them end in ly. So there is that little easy little clue to clue you in if something's an adverb. Just because something ends in ly doesn't make it an adverb, and not all adverbs end in ly. However, it is safe to say a lot of adverbs end in ly. Quickly, smoothly, silently, okay? Those are all adverbs. Another thing about adverbs that I find really interesting, maybe here's where I can tell you something you've never heard before. An adverb is the most versatile of all the parts of speech, I would argue, because you can do a really interesting thing with it. You can move it around in a sentence and it still makes sense. For example, quickly I said was an adverb, okay? I'm going to use quickly in 4 or 5 different places in the same sentence. I'm just going to move it around. Watch what happens. Quickly, the dogs ran home. The dogs quickly ran home. The dogs ran quickly home. The dogs ran home quickly. Do you see what I did there? I think I moved it in 4 different places, the word quickly. Same sentence, I just took that word and moved it around. Did it change the meaning? No, it didn't. Not substantially. Did the sentence still make sense? Yeah, it absolutely did. It was grammatically correct every time. No matter where I moved it, it still made sense. So if, for example, I were to give you a quiz, who knows, maybe I will, and I said to identify the adverb, and you thought this word might be an adverb, move it around in the sentence. If you can move it around and it still makes sense every time, you can be pretty damn sure that that's an adverb. Articles. As far as grammar is concerned, articles have a very specific definition, okay? They give you information about a noun. An article is a type of adjective, actually, because it sits next to a noun and it gives you some information about that noun. So they're very similar. They're doing the same thing. Technically, they are a type of adjective. There's only 3 of them. Here they are. A and the. That's it. Easy to remember. 3 articles. There's 3 of them. Now, here's where I think it behooves us to look at why we know something, okay? You guys all know what articles are. You guys all know how to use these articles, all right? They can be kind of tricky if you're learning English. There are certain languages that don't use articles or have different rules about articles. So if you're still learning or getting familiar with the English language, they can kind of trip you up a little bit. However, they are important because they are giving you information about a noun. Here's what I mean by that. First of all, let's think about a and the, all right? What's the difference? Is there a difference? Well, there definitely is. If I tell you guys, pick up a pen, which pen are you going to pick up? Doesn't matter. A pen is general and non-specific. It could be any pen, right? If I say pick up the pen, now I have an intent. I'm specifically thinking about one. If I say look at the pen, I'm probably holding this up and referring to this one here. That's why I said the. This isn't just a pen anymore. It's the one I'm talking about. It's the one that's the focus of our conversation, and so it's become the pen. And that's the difference between a and the. A is general, the is specific, right? Now, one other thing. Cover up the. A and an. Surprisingly, this one still gives people trouble. I see a lot of mistakes with this one when I'm looking at papers. What's the difference? Is it a apple or an apple? And when I ask this in class, I'll get both answers, believe it or not. It's an apple, okay? An apple is the proper way to say that. A apple is incorrect. That is not proper English grammar. Why is that? Well, language is an evolving thing. It's almost like it's alive. It changes over time. It just does. That's all there is to it. If we study languages, even the language we speak, we're going to see that if you go farther and farther back, it's different and the rules have changed. Well, as language evolved, it also evolves to be easier and to roll off the tongue a little more simply. It's easier to say an apple than a apple, I think. An apple, a apple. That sounds really awkward, and it's even awkward to say, but it rolls off the tongue, an apple. Now, what's the rule? If the noun following the article starts with a vowel sound, then it's an, okay? A, E, I, O, U are your vowel sounds. Those are vowels. If it has a vowel sound, so an apple, an earlobe, an elephant, right? They all start with a vowel sound, it's an. All the other consonants, not vowels, but consonants, those are all the other letters. If it starts with a consonant sound, it's going to be a house, a chair, a lamp. They all started with consonant sounds. So keep that in mind. There is a rule there, right? It's easy to forget, but it is there for a reason. I think prepositions are the easiest one to forget because I find in class, if I ask people for a definition of a preposition, very few people can give me one. They all sort of know what they are. They have an idea, but actually explaining what it does, sometimes people get tripped up on that. It's actually pretty simple. In fact, if you go online and look up preposition, like Google preposition list, it'll show you a list of all the prepositions. There is a number, there's a set number of them, and you can see all of them. And there's a lot of them. There's like over 100 of them, I believe, if I remember correctly. When I was in school, I was required to memorize the entire list of prepositions, and then we had to recite it in the front of the class, all right? My grammar teacher made us do that. She thought that was the best way for us to learn prepositions. Later on, when I learned that there was actually a really simple rule for most of the prepositions, I kind of thought she was mean and kind of an idiot because there was no reason for her to put us through that, right? It doesn't have to be hard. If there's an easier way to do it, for crying out loud, use the easier way. Here's the easier way. Here's what I learned after I memorized the stupid list of all the prepositions, right? It's a sentence, a very simple sentence. There it is. The plane flew blank the cloud, all right? Now think about it for a second. How would you fill in that blank? Give me some words that would go in that blank. Within, beyond, through, above, below, on, at, the plane flew blank the cloud. Every one of those words works. Now, why does every one of those words work? Because they're all prepositions. And in fact, only a preposition will fit there. Nothing else will make sense in that blank. Only a preposition. So, if you've got a word and you're wondering if it's a preposition, plug it into this formula. The plane flew blank the cloud. And if it makes sense, if it sounds right, then you know it's a preposition. That's why I don't make my students memorize the list of prepositions, because it's nonsense. You don't need to. However, one little caveat here, okay? It's not true for every preposition. There is a small handful of there is a small handful of prepositions that don't fit into the cloud formula, all right? Almost all of them do. 99 point something % of them make sense here, but there's a small handful that don't. For example, of is a preposition, but I think it would sound weird to say the plane flew of the cloud. That sounds a little bit funny. So it's one that doesn't follow the rule, okay? There are a few. If you want to memorize those weird prepositions, then fine, go ahead, go for it. It's not necessary though, okay? Just understand that a preposition fits into that formula. Now, let's think of the definition really quickly before I erase this one. Think about, actually, here's a better way. Look at this. Look at the word preposition. There's two parts to it, pre and position, all right? Why position? Well, that's pretty obvious because it's showing position, right? I have a plane and I have a cloud. What is the physical position of that plane relative to that cloud? Well, it's near it. That's its position. It's under it. It's over it. Those are positions, aren't they? Very, very, very often, that's what prepositions are doing. Not in every case, but a lot of them, that's what it's doing. It's just giving you a position. You can imagine this thing relative to this thing. They're by each other, right? Pre means before. Why? Well, because the preposition comes before whatever it's relative to. Grammatically in the sentence, it comes before the thing. That's why it's a preposition. That's it. That's the rule for prepositions. That's what they are. That's what they do. The last one I want to talk about is conjunctions, all right? Because they're so important. Conjunctions are incredibly important. They make your sentences better, and they also make them flow, and they also pack more information into them. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to spend another lecture talking about just these by themselves. Not today. This is just a cursory, brief explanation, an introduction, if you will, of what conjunctions do, okay? But we're going to take these apart in the next couple of days and really consider how they work. Because if commas give you trouble, if you've got one of the mean teachers with the red pen and she circles every time you make a comma error, there's a very, very good chance that it has to do with your understanding of conjunctions. Once you fully understand conjunctions and how they work and how to punctuate them, those comma errors will go away, all right? Like let's say 80 to 85% of the comma errors you make probably have to do with this guy. So that's why we're going to spend extra time on it in the next time or the time after that. For now, just know this. Conjunctions show relationships between things in clauses and phrases, okay? So there's actually 7 of them. There are different kinds of conjunctions, okay? And these 7 that we're looking at specifically are called coordinating conjunctions. But generally when somebody just says conjunction, this is the type they're talking about. So we're just going to use the term conjunction to talk about these types, okay? If you're looking at my list here and saying that the order looks funny, then you learned an extra thing about conjunctions. And I purposely put them out of order because I want to talk about that for the next time. But just understand that these 7 words are all conjunctions and they all show relationships between things that are happening in words and phrases. Okay, that's all we need to know for now. And that's pretty much it for today. Just a little bit of discussion about the parts of speech, just to get our feet wet, just to get us going down the path of becoming stronger writers, all right? Hopefully this wasn't too painful for you. I try to keep the lectures as brief and concise as I can. In fact, I don't lecture a whole bunch. I'm more interested in you just writing and learning about writing through your own writing, right? Making discoveries in the writing process through your own writing process. So we'll be doing a lot of writing and a lot of reflecting on our own writing. Stuff like this, it's necessary occasionally, right? So that's it for today. I don't have any homework for you, no new assignments. But tomorrow, probably tomorrow, we're going to go back over conjunctions, and that's where the real work is going to start happening. All right. So for now, that's pretty much it. Stay tuned. Check in again tomorrow, and I will see you soon.